Welcome to the Play and Record podcast, brought to you by Live from the Groove. You can find these podcasts on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music and more. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Huge thanks to everyone supporting, sharing and keeping the vibe alive. Now let's jump right in. Welcome back to the Play and Record podcast. I'm Al English, and this is episode 5, No Man's Land. So yeah, once again, hope you've been enjoying the previous episodes, getting lots of nice comments, and people tuning in who I didn't really expect as well, which has been a nice surprise.
Hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey.
I remember it clearly. So walking back from Cash Generator, carrying 2 turntables and a mixer, all in one big box. So yeah, quite a big box. Remember getting home, setting them up, clueless about any of it. But if we just rewind a little bit and just try and bridge this gap from playing in rock bands and being heavily interested in that sort of thing, how did I end up being interested in DJing? I think I'm going to start by mentioning my dad's records. He had a Phil Collins album. It was a Genesis album, actually, with that's still a fucking funny riff, that. A land of confusion. He had some like classical albums as well, which I have no idea why he would have them. But you know, just things like the 1812 Overture and stuff. I don't know, maybe he was trying to be all highbrow at one point. He also had an Eagles album. It was One of These Nights, which I just fell in love with the front cover. I thought, wow, whatever is on this album, it's going to be absolute gold. And then when I put it on,
Jesus, man, could you change the channel? Man, come on, I had a rough night and I hate the fucking Eagles, man.
So before I inevitably busted the stylus, I learned how it all worked, and I got the concept of vinyl very early on. Some of the earliest sort of DJ-related memories I remember are Myvering school disco DJs. I remember once I tried to force a tape into the hand of a primary school DJ. I can't even remember what was on it. Some track I recorded at home or something, probably off the radio. And rightly so, he decided not to play it, but it really upset me, and the teachers were struggling to sort of comprehend what had happened. But I was always interested in the DJ. I used to just stand at the side watching them, which is, looking back on it, quite creepy now. If someone did that to me now, I would definitely get very creeped out, even if they were a kid, you know. But yeah, I don't do those sorts of gigs, fortunately. So yeah, Myvering school DJs, sort of crowding round DJs at family functions, and it was a different sort of DJ in that. Obviously, it was Pennine Sweet, Pasty and Peas. It was very Phoenix Nights-esque, the sort of DJing that was commonplace back then. Lots of heavy set, middle-aged men with ponytails. You know, they seemed to be the ones who were calling the shots in the amateur DJ world back then. They kind of looked like darts players. Or maybe that was just because it was up north. Maybe they also played darts during the week. Maybe they were moonlighting. Who knows?
Here we go, let's set the dance floor on fire. DJ Ray Van Cleef. Here we go, let's check this out. Check it out.
But there's one thing that's for certain. If you're a DJ at the weekend, you definitely got another job. Unless you're like some sort of Tiesto, which no one ever is, are they? So yeah, during the week, probably all doing something different, like me, going around driving vans. There was also a party I went to at one of my friends' houses. It was a New Year's Eve party, and I think I must have been about 10-year-old, and his older brother was into DJing, and I think he had a lot of gear from his dad, who was a DJ as well. And before you say it, no, he didn't fit the description I just mentioned about a DJ. He didn't look like that. So yeah, if you're listening, Johnny, I'm not trying to say your dad is a heavy-set darts player type DJ, Stringfellow. He wasn't. So let's just clear that up right there. And his older brother ended up showing me and all the other kids sort of the equipment briefly, and I was fascinated by the flashing lights and, you know, the size of the speakers. It was like a magnet to me. You know, I thought I am going to own something like this one day. I knew there and then that this is something that heavily interested me. And also that evening he had he didn't just have the audio side of things, he had some lighting as well. So he had like these old school spotlights where you could put different coloured filters in front of them. Now obviously it's all LED and it's all dead easy and plug and play, but back then you had to like change the screen, the film that went over the lamp. So we had green ones, he had red ones, orange ones. So we formulated this plan because he had this next door neighbour, or in fact it wasn't a next door neighbour, it was directly across the house from him. Looking back on it, she was clearly a troubled woman. She lived on her own, but she was the sort of lady who used to like pop the balls if they ever landed on her lawn. She'd run out and pop them, or, you know, she'd be watching for something all the time. Like, and naturally kids just sort of target those people for right or wrong. So we formulated this plan to rig up a spotlight pointing into her living room with a green filter on it. We also set going a smoke machine. We got a bit of smoke cascading through the green light, and to top it off, we turned the PA system on and we played the X-Files theme tune. I just remember looking out the window and I was like, I don't think it's working. And then I just saw her draw the curtains and she just looked so confused. And looking back, that's pretty horrifying. We shouldn't have subjected her to that. She probably thought it was like an alien takeover or something. But yeah, I think she soon worked out what was going on and was around complaining to a bunch of drunk parents, which didn't go down very well either. So those were some of the earliest sort of DJ influences, if you will, that I can remember. I was also just useless in things like school plays in primary schools and stuff, and I think the teachers sort of just had to find me something to do, because I just refused to contribute to things that I just didn't want to do, like including playing the recorder. I'm very musical, as you know, the podcast is about music, but zero interest in recorder at all. And, you know, the teacher had to just find some rubbish tasks for me to do. But the same thing used to happen in all these school plays and performances and stuff. I ended up being like the technician, if you can even call it that. It basically consisted of me wearing a black t-shirt and black pants and making sure no one trips over the mic cables. I thought it was like a really respected, important job at the time. And everyone was like, well, yeah, you're a technician, well done. You know, it sounds really posh, doesn't it? A 10-year-old technician. But it gives you a little flavour of the sort of things that really interested me. So moving forward a few years, but not quite up to the point where we bought the turntables, I just want to give you a bit of a flavour of the sort of music that I was listening to. So looking back on it, I was always drawn to the more funkier side of rock bands. Bands like Rage Against the Machine, definite hip-hop element to a lot of their tracks. Red Hot Chili Peppers, dripping in funk, all that Blood Sugar Sex Magic album. Even bands like Incubus, they had a DJ. Earlier on as well, there was also a little bit of hip-hop influence creeping through without me even really knowing it. So alongside some of the music that was featured in the computer games and the sort of skating videos that I used to watch, there was also bits creeping through on the radio as well, and just sort of generally. I remember being in the bath and listening to some music on one of them radio tape cassette things, and what I now know to be Can I Kick It by A Tribe Called Quest came on the radio, and I just jumped out of the bath and pressed play and record. Little podcast name drop there for you.
Can I kick it?
But yeah, I used to rinse that tape over and over again, and I had no idea who it was, because the presenter who came on after didn't even say, he just went straight into the next track. I also bought a magazine. I think it was like some shitty Smash Hits magazine, and it had purely because it had a CD on the front cover. And it was 95% shitty pop music, but lo and behold, it also had the Wise Guys, Ooh La La. That got absolutely rinsed over and over again, and I still love the Wise Guys to this day. I also had the CD, I think it was Now 35 or something, and it had Blue Boy, Remember Me on it. Love that track, I still play it now. With the clever use of the Marlena Shaw vocal. But the twist is it's from the live version, because if you listen to the normal version, that gang, 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 that's not on it. So yeah, it's from the live version. Clever. Blue Boy, Remember Me, tune.
Yeah,
I remember being in some of my friends' parents' cars and hearing some of the music they were listening to. Fatboy Slim album. I remember loving the Gangster Tripping track. They also played Moby, which I wasn't too keen on. Around the time we were 15, still playing in the rock band, we used to go to this club in Bolton Town Centre. It was called Hawthorns. I think it later changed its name to Club Indigo before it fell down. I seem to remember it falling down or having some sort of structural issue. Fuck knows, but yeah. But Hawthorns was like an alternative club, and I'd never been to a nightclub before this point. Oh, being 15, I suppose that's quite understandable. But these were the days before they brought in the Challenge 18, which I think became Challenge 21 and then later Challenge 25. So weirdly enough, we could get in all these bars and clubs when we were 15. But when they brought that rule in when we were 16, we couldn't go anywhere. So it was a really strange experience, being sort of like castrated again from going out, because we got used to it when we were 15. And then we had to wait then because they got really keen on with the ID, so you couldn't really do anything until you were 18. And plus, I look dead young for my age. I still do, which I'm more happy about now than I was back then. But yeah, it was a bit problematic. But Hawthorns was like a little dark club, and central dance floor, which was like sort of sunken into the floor, and then there were like these seating areas which went round, and quite a central DJ booth. And again, like, I used to love watching the DJ here because, you know, even though it was an alternative club, so the majority of stuff that were played was like rock music, heavy rock, classic rock, and stuff like that. You know, there was also the odd hip-hop number that crept in, so this is where I first heard tracks like Cypress Hill, Insane in the Membrane, and also where I reheard things like House of Pain, Jump Around, which before then I'd only heard in the Mrs. Doubtfire soundtrack. And as well, the first time I would hear something like Jurassic 5, Concrete Schoolyard.
Ain't nothing to it. So what you gonna do around this? I'm gonna go over here and get this girl I know you got, man, see what it's headed.
And then lo and behold, A Tribe Called Quest, Can I Kick It? All the dots starting to connect. So all these influences were just presenting themselves in various places. So yeah, going to Hawthorns, playing in rock bands, I had a chip on my shoulder, and I'd gone from having like zero to little confidence to having possibly too much confidence. I was wearing big baggy jeans, massive skater shoes, and flannel shirts, walking around like a big tea towel. And all of a sudden, it all came crashing down. The band broke up, like I mentioned in the last episode, and I was left in no man's land. So for a while, I kind of like retreated inside my shell. It was a bit of a funny time, this, because I'd left school, things were changing. A lot of my friends, we stopped sort of hanging out in the same way. We all got like evening part-time jobs. You know, we were talking about colleges, and some people weren't going to college, they were going to work, and it was just a massive change. And when changes happen that fast, you know, it can sometimes throw me off. So I kind of retreated inside my shell. I'd also had a few girlfriends during this time, but there was one towards the end of school which lasted a lot longer. And when that finished before college, that just rocked me to the core. When you first get dumped for the first time, that is like the most heart-wrenching feeling, isn't it? You know, so put all those things together and I was feeling pretty low. So at this point, I decided that I was going to have a fresh start. I decided that I was going to go to music college and do music technology. So I've been on tours around various places. We went round Blackburn College, I think, first, and then started looking in ones in Manchester. There was one called, I think it was called Mancat. It's not around anymore, but it was a music technology college that I was very impressed with, and I did all right in my GCSEs, not great, not poor, just sort of average. And I thought, why not go into a music college? So I'd signed on the dotted line at this place at Mancat, and I was due to start after the summer holidays. Yeah, I just remember it being like an iceberg in front of the Titanic. You know, I was like, the closer I got to it, the more fear I had. I just wasn't ready to take the plunge, you know, into the big city. It was just a combination of all these things, sort of knocking my confidence like one after the other. I bottled it. I absolutely bottled it right at the last minute, and I decided to jump on the bandwagon and go to the sixth form college at the school that I'd already been to. So it was Turton School, and I ended up at Turton sixth form, and it was right at the last minute I was able to get in for like music, of course, media studies, next best thing I suppose, and I had to pick one more, so history. Always been interested in history, still interested in history, so I managed to sneak myself in and get myself a last minute place at college. So the summer before college, I'd spent my time getting to grips with the turntables, working out what the earth cables were for, because I never had those plugged in at first. And someone came round, it was Mike Eccles. Eccles came round and he said, "You need those plugged in, mate." And he couldn't tell me why. And I was like, "Why? What are they for?" And he didn't know, but he just knew that they had to be plugged in. So yeah, he was right. And I was like a musical sponge at this point. I was soaking everything up, getting into stuff like Aphex Twin, stoner rock like Electric Wizard. This was quite a strange time musically for me because there was a lot of rock still present, but there was also a lot of other stuff as well, such as Infected Mushroom. I'm guessing most of you probably won't have heard of Infected Mushroom, but they're like a very high energy psytrance. It's like proper mental. Well, yeah, I was listening to just all sorts of stuff. Like, there was a band called Refused, which I remember being very into, an album called The Shape of Punk to Come. I was also friendly with another guy who used to go to Hogwarts, aka Bolton School. He was called Robs, and he came round to my house once. He played bass and guitar and other things, and he came round for a jam, and he brought down this like humongous Yamaha like mixing console thing that had the ability to record multi-tracked sessions and stuff. It was like my eyes lit up, and I blagged Robs to leave this at my house, and he really didn't care. It was on loan from his school, which just shows how much money they have, because they didn't ask for this thing back for like nearly a year. I had this in my room and I was learning how it all works, and we were creating songs, like me and my friends, when we were smoking weed and stuff, and we were just making stupid songs. But during this I sort of learned how it all worked and how to make things sound better and stuff. It was cool. I remember doing a song about piss booing, the suntan lotion. Yeah, I don't really know how that one came about. There was also a song that we wrote called Bog Rat, in which my friend Bob sang the vocal. And it went, Her name is Bograt. She came in the night. And it was like some stupid, like, Mexican sounding thing, like, and we recorded it, and it was just the funniest thing ever, and we used to play it all the time. But even funnier than that is when I was doing my A-level music in Upper Six, which I had to write a symphony, you know, and for anyone who doesn't know what a symphony is, it's like there's a lot of instruments, a lot of different layers, a lot of moving parts and recurring themes and stuff, and there's like rules to it, you know, you can't just, it's not just like a blank canvas, unfortunately for me. So, and I didn't know what to write or base it upon, and I ended up basing it upon the melody from this song, Bograt. And it later got played, no shit. It got played by the Halle Orchestra, playing it all properly. I've got the recording somewhere, I'm going to dig it out. Fucking Halle Orchestra, man. They're like prestigious orchestra playing Bograt that we wrote stoned out of our heads and recorded on a 12-track Yamaha. I was also messing about like on the more technical side of things as well. I was I don't want to use the word inventing things, because when I tell you what I was making, you'll agree. I was just like taking things apart really, and there was one like I took like a house phone apart, you know, like a landline, and the cable that sort of went to the earpiece so you could hear everything. I soldered that into like an amplifier, so everyone that rang me, I could play it through like the speakers in my room. It didn't work very well. It was a bit shit, but it worked in some ways. I don't know why I was making that though. Another memorable contraption that I invented. My friend Joe will know about this one. We called it the speaker shoe. It was a shoe with a speaker inside it, because everybody needs one of those. The downside is the speaker was so big that when it was inside the shoe, you couldn't put your foot in it. So it was more of an ornamental shoe speaker. But again, you know, that worked better. That was all right. You had a big wire going to it, which wasn't ideal. You know, this is the days before wireless technology. Probably not something that's going to get me anywhere on Dragon's Den anytime soon. There was also a subwoofer that I made from an old guitar amp, and I like ordered, it was like the early days of eBay, and I ordered a crossover circuit for it, and wired that up, so blasting that, and I lined it in like a leopard skin lining, because for some reason I used to do that. I used to line everything in leopard skin, like my drum stool was leopard skin. I think I had a leopard skin guitar strap as well, and I have no idea. Also making a lot of sort of mix CDs as well, burning CDs in the early days. There's one called Caned with a K, that's what it's written on it, and it's guaranteed slumber, it says on it, and I must admit, I'll stand by that to this day. It is a collection of like 16 tracks. There's everything on there from like Riders on the Storm by The Doors to like Souls of Mischief to The Roots. There's just some really good stuff on there. I've still got the CD. But naturally, this prompted me to start buying records, because I had the turntables, so it was time to start buying records. And it was a bit strange for me at first, because I was so used by this point, I hold my hands up, I was so used to downloading shit for free. That's what everyone was doing at that point, had hard drives full of music. But despite sort of having to buy the music, it was still massively appealing to me. I remember going into X Records for the first time, which is a shop still open in Bolton. And there's 2 floors, and you can't even move in there. It's got crazier and crazier over the years, and a lot more disorganised now. But it's still going, so if you're popping by, go in. But yeah, walking down the stairs in X Records. And by the way, Alistair from Vinyl Resting Place, who I am now very close with. He has a record shop in Affleck's Palace, Manchester. This is how he sort of started out in the record game. He was working at X Records, and this was the very first place that I bought some records from. I remember coming out with a Jurassic 5 album, a Ludacris single, which my friend Paul was really into, so I thought this is going to be good, but yeah, wasn't really into that when I got that home. And also some like mad UK versus US house 80s stuff. It was, I don't know why I bought that, but I did. So messing around with stuff like that, I still remember one of the records my dad had was he had the Toto album. I forget what it was called, but it was the one with the main one with Africa and Rosanna on, red cover. And I took that on one turntable, and I had Action Satisfaction by Jurassic 5 on the other turntable lined up, and it's got like a count in.
I seen the dead man grins, the 7 deadly sins, smile blows, then the house of the gins. The all seeing eye that recognize the rap clones.
And it just happened to be quite similar, I thought, to the tempo of the Toto Africa sample.
I seen the dead man grins, the 7 deadly sins, couldn't keep his mouth closed in the house of the gins. The all seeing eye that recognize the rap clones, plus possessed the pen to crack the pyramid.
So this is where I first learned to beat match. I would mess around with the very inaccurate pitch faders of the cam turntables that I had. And I was very scientific at this point with my DJ, and I would write things down like, if I'm doing this mix, this one is +4 on the right side, this one is -2 for the next track, and then it was like some sort of bizarre instruction manual, whereas that is the complete opposite of how I do things now. Now it is completely off the cuff, and it couldn't be further away from that. Some people still DJ like that. One of my friends, Dennis, he DJs, and he's sort of like, it's all about counting everything. I'll count this and I'll count that, and then if I count this, I know there's this, and then I can look at the BPM, and then if that's right, then it's just, I find it quite scientific, people who DJ like that, whereas for me it's just I just feel it. I feel like where it should go, and the more you listen to your music, the better you know it. So maybe I do count without even knowing it, but you know, it's odd, isn't it, the different methods that people sort of use. I also got a little job around this point at the local co-op supermarket, stacking shelves, restocking stuff, you know, till work. I would use people's discarded till receipts to like write little notes on things I was going to try, little mixes, and then that later progressed to like writing lyrics on the back of these till receipts. I'd have like a pocket full of them when I got home from work, and I just have to sort through them and decide which ones were worth keeping. But I didn't really enjoy working at the co-op. I just found the work so soul destroying, and again, like I said, it was a bit of a somber time, and you know, you've got your girlfriend who dumps you, your band splits up, you don't want to go to the college, throw in a little bit of employment into the mix. That just made things even more depressing. So I think, like, in conclusion, this time it was neither here nor there. That's why I've called it no man's land, because I didn't know where I was, I didn't know what I was going to do, I didn't know, you know, it was such a confusing time for me. Remember that being a really long summer before I started college. In many ways, I think that's kind of like, I was kind of looking at it like it's your last summer as a kid. Things are going to get real from this point. And I suppose, really, it was true. And I'm going to leave it there for this episode. It's a good place to leave it. Next episode, you're going to love it. We've got one of my very best friends, Ben Hamill, a.k.a. Scrabble. He's coming over to feature on the podcast to talk about the next chapter. Flying over from Dublin, and it's going to be all about simple samples.